Today, you get 2 days in one. Isn't that exciting? About 4 a.m. last night, we got dumped on again, which is unusual. I would say 90% of rainstorms in Arizona are in the afternoon, not in the morning. So that's kind of woke me up. A lot of lightning and thunder. Very, very close. Well, in case there was any doubt of whether or not it does sometimes rain in Arizona, here is proof. The rain is slowing down now. We're at a school in the district for the design squad competition, which James's team is in, and also the district science fair, which James's project is in. So we're very proud of him. I'm just going to say, of the 10 or 15 kids from ATS who are here on the design squad, none one of those selected 3 are my child. So I actually don't care what's happening here. Okay, seriously petty of me, but if my kid's not going to be doing anything, I've wasted my evening. In case you're wondering why I'm so unshaven today, it's because they are doing new ID badges at work, and I wanted to look just as awful as I possibly could for the picture. True story. I was going to tell you all about my misadventures yesterday and today trying to get tickets for the Gallifrey One convention. Now, for those of you who don't know, Gallifrey One is the world's largest fan-run Doctor Who convention. It's been going for 26 years. The 27th will be in 2016 in February, and I've never been to one. I've been to science fiction conventions, but I really stopped going to them for a variety of reasons years ago. But Gallifrey One has always sort of fascinated me because, well, it's the biggest Doctor Who convention. It's in Los Angeles, so it's a bit of a drive. But I'm going now because the kids are old enough. And we don't know who will be there, but frequently they have a doctor there, the 6th, the 8th, the 7th. Who knows, maybe even one of the newer ones. We never can tell. And so, but they sell out in an hour. And so I was poised to get tickets yesterday, and they had a colossal failure. And I will talk about that on another day, because I have something else I want to talk to you about. But I did get tickets, just so you know. So we will be going in February 2016. So you've got then for the tedium to break. I've got a third event. But what I'm going to talk to you about is cooking. Now, and this is probably the most sincere thing you're ever going to hear on this vlog, because it's not what you think. I mean, yes, cooking is what you think. And if you know me, you know that on one of my other YouTube channels, one of the things that I do is the Half-Assed Kitchen, which is a sort of cooking program that I throw together to show that you just put stuff in the pot and cook, and that's cooking, sort of half-assed. But there's actually something very serious behind that. It's a joke, yes, but it's also true. Now, something about me that you may not know. My mother died when I was 2, just nearly 3. No recollection of her whatsoever. My father never remarried. My grandparents, his parents, came to live with us and raised me. So in a way, I was raised by my grandparents because my dad's job kept him away from the house 5 days a week. So I was raised by his parents. So if there's anything weird about the generational gap there between me and people my age and perhaps others, it's partially because of that. I think I genuinely believe that I was raised in a household that was 30 years off time. But my grandmother, by the time I was 8, was quite infirm with osteoporosis, and so she was frail and couldn't do a whole lot of things other than keep an eye on me. But in some ways, I was keeping an eye on her. And I've always been a very literal-minded person. I'm a computer programmer for a reason. I can see in logical steps from point A to point B, and I'm very good at making those. I'm not boasting. I am very good. I'm a very good programmer and always have been. And if you think about it, programming is a mindset. I see things, identify a problem, I see the steps to take, I make the steps to go there. So I am the kind of person who follows a pattern, follows a formula, goes from A to B, doesn't play hopscotch along the way. That's just not the way my mind thinks. And I also love to eat. Did you know that? I love flavorful foods. I'm not a person who likes boiled this and that. I love cooking with rich and spices and flavor. And I wanted to cook. I wanted to be able to cook, but I labored under some misapprehensions. Now, my family is, in a way, small and in a way large, but my branch of it is very small. There's my dad, who was an only child, and there was myself. And of course, my mother died. She was the youngest of her sisters, and she was quite a bit older than my father. Her sisters were all much older than her and dead. I'm isolated. My dad had cousins, and my grandfather's brothers' children, and they also lived where we lived. And one pair of them were Roger and Francis, and they were my dad's cousins. They always were called Uncle Roger and Aunt Francis to me, the second cousins, but they were much older. They're older than my dad, and Roger passed away some years ago. But back when we lived in Tucson, Francis, who was Italian by birth, was a wonderful cook. And Italian food she could do. And I love Italian food. Pizza more. And she didn't know how to do pizza, which was a shame. But lasagna. And so I asked her to, could you teach me how to make lasagna? This happened when I was probably 14 or 15 years old. And already I was doing computer programming, and I was, that was clearly the path I was going down. So, I mean, it's not like this is the way my mind worked even back then. That's what I'm getting at. And she taught me to cook lasagna, but she didn't just teach me to cook lasagna. She taught me to make the sauce from scratch. She taught me to make the meatballs from scratch. Although, to this day, I still quite don't understand why you make the meatballs, just crumble the meatballs up and then put them in the lasagna. But okay, it worked. It was good. It was excellent. And it wasn't just that she showed me how to make lasagna, but what she taught me was she taught me how to cook. She taught me that it isn't that slavish following of the recipe to make the food. You have to taste the food. You have to put things in the food that you want to put in the food. You know, you make it taste the way you like it. And that really was an eye-opener for me. It was something beyond what I understood the world to be, because I would have said that if you had a recipe and you bought the ingredients and you put them in the same way, exactly the same time, every time, you would get exactly the same result. There is the computer programmer in my mind saying that's what should happen, but it is not what happens. And if that is the way you cook, you will not be a good cook. It's that simple. I mean, yes, there are things that need to go in it, but the recipe is not as important as the flavor of the dish that you cook. And so, and in particular when making pasta sauce, and you know, it's like, well, how much? Okay, so I'd be like, how much sugar do you put in? And she'd go, I don't know. Like, well, we're not going to get anywhere if you don't know. She's, well, you have to put in sugar until it changes flavor. And I'm like, what do you mean changes flavor? And she made me eat the sauce until it changed flavor, and it was an amazing, I mean, just an instantaneous, the sauce was completely different. Suddenly it went from tomato sauce to a pasta sauce. And I took a lot away from that. It took the ability to stand back from some processes and say, you know, this is not a computer programs. It doesn't work that way. The world is not binary and step by step, and it is what it is. It's an imperfect analog world where the ingredients aren't the same every time, and your taster is not the same as my taster, and we cook to enjoy what we're making and what we eat, and so the recipe is not that important. What you get out of it and what you want it to taste like is what. And you know, you don't necessarily achieve what you wanted, but that is the process of trial and error. Anyway, in a way, that's why I do the half-ass kitchen. It's because even to this day, in a way, it bothers me that the world is that way. That I can't make an exact recipe every time and it's going to come out perfectly every time. And you just have to say, hey, you know, I think this would work well. And I credit her with teaching me how to cook. You know, maybe not how to turn on the stove or how to boil water, but here, in the mind, she taught me how to cook. And in the intervening 35 years since then, I have had many, many people tell me how good I am at cooking. Because I cook to make it taste good. I don't care what the recipe says you're supposed to have in it. I cook it the way I want it, and I'm good at it. And that is her. That is entirely 100% down to her. And the reason I mention it now and today is, and I can't even tell you how old she was, because I'm guessing it was 90, 92, something, but she died this past weekend. And I can't exactly say that we were close, living 100 miles apart, and would visit her every 2 or 3 years. But when I got married, the only family I invited apart from my father were Roger and Francis, because they're the only ones I knew. And after that, Roger died. And Francis is the only one we ever went to visit, because she was the only, you know, I know her kids. I might even recognize them on sight. I'm friends with a couple of them on Facebook. But I never really knew them. And so she is was the last link in that Glover family to me, in a way. And I guess it lives on in my lasagna and everything else I ever learned to cook. I'm not going to put it on the board, but I think we have to go down for the funeral Saturday, which I don't do funerals, but for her I'll do a funeral. So, how's that for a downer? I'm just gonna, do the thing, and talk to you tomorrow.